back, everybody. It's 2025, good old New Year, and I'll have to tell you, man, New Year started off literally with a bang. And it's been, if y'all the news and everything, it's been pretty busy and chaotic already in 2025. I actually shared a meme the other day on my on the Instagram account of a dude who's about to flick a tiger's balls and says, 2025, here we go. Just it's basically that's what's happening, and we're back. We're back recording. Got a few guests lined up, a few things coming, and all this would not have happened without our sponsors, supporters. AAA Police Supply. Head over there for all your law enforcement needs. That's aaapolicasupply.com. Make sure you use the coupon code Sapient 2025 to get 10% off your entire order. And don't forget, head over to Havoc Journal. Yours truly always has some articles out there. I think I pretty much touch on everything from philosophy all the way through even these days counterterrorism and all kinds of stuff and law enforcement and related stuff. And as always, reach out anytime to me. I'm in at projectsapient.com for any questions that you guys have. We're going to be stepping up a little more with the show. I'm going to be pushing out a lot more content for this year. There's a lot of things going on, and one of the things that I just want to touch on is 22 Mohawks heading down in a couple weeks to the airborne retreat. It's amazing how much that's grown for fellow veterans and responders. If you guys listened a couple episodes ago, we had Graham on, who's a jump master down there at X-35 Airborne School, and man, it's grown, and it's been nice for me to go back down there to see everything and how much it's grown. And Dave and Stacy at 22 Mohawks have done a bang up job really growing that program into what it is today. So I'll post all the links in the show notes of all of that and upcoming things that are going to be happening. And I'm going to be rolling out training soon. If you look at our website, projectsapient.com, I'm going to start posting some training that I'm going to be holding. One is going to be up at 6R Academy. They've been great up there. I've been working with them, a couple of the instructors on some combatives and stress response type training. And we partnered with Whoop. If you guys don't know what that is, look them up. They're a biofeedback device, basically heart rate, sleep. It measures everything. And very excited to start that partnership where we're going to be getting devices from them, and I'll be handing them out to first responders, veterans, all that good stuff. And what's cool is they're giving you 12 months free subscription, right? 12 months for free. Just throw the device on, you have it for a year, and 12-month free subscription. So it's going to be pretty cool to have that, especially use it as a tool for recovery and stress response and stuff like that. But we'll talk more about that on another date. But today we have an awesome guest, Brent Cartwright, and Brent actually reached out to me via email and looked at his story and really cool. And we'll have him say hello in a second, and just going to go through his bio a little, and you'll see why I have him on here. So he was in the Army, in the looks like Army National Guard. So from 1996 to 2005. He was a 13 Bravo, fellow red leg. That's what I'm talking about. National Guard unit deployed from 03 to 05. Stayed stateside in Fort Lewis, Washington, and obviously law enforcement. 16 years as an officer with Kansas City Police Department. 5 years patrol. 11 years as undercover. Last 5 years was undercover assigned to ATF, Illegal Firearms Task Force. So a retired Detective Brent Cartwright dedicated 16 years of service as a police officer in Kansas City with more than a decade as an undercover detective. He's a recognized expert witness involved in narcotics trafficking within the United States criminal courts. Brent retired from law enforcement after being shot multiple times during an undercover operation to capture a wanted homicide suspect while assigned to an ATF task force. Throughout his tenure as an undercover, Brent played a critical role in his squad of purchasing drugs, firearms on streets of one of the most violent cities in America. As his work progressed, the boundary between Brent's authentic self and his undercover persona became increasingly blurred. And man, ain't that the truth? We'll get into that. And consumed by his relentless commitment to the job at the expense of his own personal well-being. Brent openly discusses his journey, details the risks of immersing himself in his profession, leading to a profound transformation and negatively reshaping his identity in the very streets he sought to clean up. And man, Brent, thank you for coming on the show, brother. This is, long time coming, and glad you're here, bro.
Yeah, hey man, I can't thank you enough for having me. It's just been an honor, and I appreciate it, man. When I reached out to you, I was like, man, there's no way this dude's gonna, let me come on and talk. But I mean, you are, and it's awesome. I appreciate it. So I think that got a pretty good experience and message for people, and let's see how everybody feels about it.
Yeah, no, I mean the message is great, and that's the thing, with me and Project Sapient, sapient is human, right? That's all that means. It's the human side of law enforcement, the human side of being a military, the human side of a lot of things, and a lot of times that gets blurred and that gets forgotten. That in the end, we're all human, right? We all struggle the same way. We all deal with things, sure, differently, but in the end, we're all human, right? And where I want to kind of kick this off is just literally start from from your time in the military and on through your law enforcement career, especially leading up to you being shot multiple times and how that's been for you. So Brent, kick off, man. I mean, what made you join the military?
Yeah, so I'm actually lineage, and my family has a history of military service. So both my grandparents, my grandpas, they were both in World War II. My dad was in the Army during Vietnam. My brother joined up just after the first Gulf War. So it was it wasn't a necessity that I go to the military, but I felt like the calling and the call to serve. So I also looked at it as a way I wanted to go to college, and that was the easiest way to get college paid for. And so I went into military like, hey, let's take whatever as much money and benefits as I can right out the gate and move along, which is why, like as we talked before, is I was like 109 pounds, and they said, where do you want? What job do you want? I'm like, whatever has the highest bonus. And like, artillery. Man, the recruiter got me good. He did. So yeah, man, they sent me into a 155 towed unit.
Oh, 155 is even worse.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And much like the Paladin had just come out.
Yeah,
so, and I was like, of course, I get like the Vietnam era towed thing, driving with the 5 tons and then chucking the 110 or 102 pound shells they were. But I was like, all the big dudes are like carrying 2 shells at a time coming off the Hemet. And here I was like, no, just pass me one. Just pass me one.
Yeah, 109 pounds and the shell weighs 102 pounds. So literally you were carrying yourself.
Yeah. Oh, it was stupid. The guy, like I said, he got me. Lesson learned: pay attention what you do when you sign up.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, to all the prominent, wannabe soldiers and airmen, well, not so much airmen, but soldiers, Marines. Yeah, make sure you read that dotted line.
Yeah, you have a choice. You have a choice.
Yeah, exactly.
Know that. Yeah, so man, I did that, and I did the National Guard because I wanted to, I didn't want a full commitment to the military, and so I go to college, and then as soon as I get out, they reach back out and said, well, hey, you actually owe a little bit more money, or you can get back in for a year. And so it was a tuition reimbursement thing that they had. So I said, man, I can't afford this like $15,000 payment they're asking me for. You have like 30 days to pay it. So I ended up signing up for one more year. And then my 11th month, they stop-lossed me and said, hey, we're getting deployed. And I thought, man, awesome. I mean, this was 2003. So it's like the height of Iraq starting. Afghanistan had been going a couple of years. And I was, well, cool, I'm going to do this. And they mixed our unit up, changed us from artillery to MP, and then sent us to Fort Lewis, Washington. So I never got the combat side of it at all. That's what kind of started to bring me into police work a little bit. Truth be told, I hated almost every minute of it out there. Yeah.
I mean, it's funny how military service, like, we were artillery, but then we got attached to an MP battalion overseas in Iraq, and I mean, I was very busy. I was on the battalion commander's PSD, and I spoke Arabic, so that kept me very busy. And it's funny. I never had in my head ever that I'll be a cop. It was never ever like, I was going to college for psychology. I was doing psychology, sociology, anthropology, like, all kinds of different things. And sure enough, like, post military service, I'm like, I'm going to be a cop. It's funny how that works out, right?
Yeah, man. When I got out, when they finally got out in '05, because it was 18 months out there, I swore up and down. I was like, no way. I'm not going to be a cop ever again. I'm going to put this behind me. My roommate out there was actually a cop here in Kansas City. So when we came back together, just to kind of bullshit after about a year, he's asked me what I was doing. I mean, I was banging my head against the wall doing sales. So he was telling me about all the stuff he was doing, working patrol in Kansas City again. That's one of the, it's always in the top 10 most violent cities per capita. And he was loving every minute of it working in our inner cities, which is our most busy. And he talked me into it. He said, "Hey man, you go try ride along." So I tried to ride along, man, and I came home that night, talked to my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and said, "Hey, I'm going to take a 60% pay cut, and I'm going to go be a cop." And of course, she was like, "I thought you hated being a cop."
Yeah.
Well, if as an MP in Fort Lewis, I kind of was, but I wasn't. We get stuck on gate duty all the time. So, but the sheer adrenaline, man, of working in the inner city is just too addictive and too much to pass up. So that's where I found it, man. I was at that point, man. I was like, sign me up.
Yeah, it's a little different working in a city as a cop than, out on a base. It's very different when you're running around a city. It's a different type of adrenaline rush, which 100% agree with you. So, when did you get on Kansas City?
Uh, right at the beginning of 2007, January of '07.
Wow. So I got on. It's funny. I officially got on my department. I was in Boston at first with the transit police. So I got on their job at October of 2007. So yeah,
Okay.
you started January 2000. Yeah, I started October 2007. So how was what was the academy like for you?
So they were pretty militaristic still. So it was pretty. But I mean, I was older. I mean, I was coming up on 30 at the time. So you had a lot of those guys right out of college, and a couple, in their mid 20s. So we still a little militaristic, but starting to get more academic. And it probably 10 years before that, you had to get on and be like a detention officer or know somebody. Your family had to know
Yeah.
somebody to get on. They were really starting to already start struggling for numbers. So it took a little bit. It didn't take a whole lot to get on, but it took a little bit. And I knew somebody, so they had to call for me too. But it was fun, man. You really don't know what you're really getting into, even though you do the ride-alongs and you do the ride-alongs throughout the academy, until you're actually in boots in with gun strapped to your side and having to make the decisions split second. I thought I was prepared, and you just really aren't. I mean, there's just no way to do it without dumping you in there and putting your FTO in your back pocket and working at it.
Yeah, I mean, 100% true. I mean, I remember when I was on my, graduate academy and all that, and you're all shiny in your uniform. And it's funny you sent your picture, which I'll put on the
Baby cop, buddy.
Instagram, the young cop Brent. I'm like, oh, we all had that look when we first started.
Excited, man. I was letting me
Exactly.
at him.
Oh man, I had to laugh at that, and because I look at my picture, I'm like, oh my god, you are so young.
Yeah, man. I
But
mean,
man, yeah,
for me though, sorry to interrupt, man.
yeah, go.
Right, I went from Fort Lewis, where there was not a single time that I ever drew my weapon. Ever. 18 months, never pulled my weapon out of the holster. And then I go into Kansas City, and it's 5, 6, 7 times a night. You're drawing down on somebody. I mean, it's a whole different ball game, a way bigger danger level. So, and then it's culture shock. I mean, my hometown is like 250 people.
Yeah.
And I was near Kansas City, but I never really ventured to the city. And now I'm like running around people whose lives are completely different than mine, and helping try to talk them into making sense, because you can't arrest your way out of everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tough.
I mean, that's the thing. Like I learned, again, like in terms of drawing my weapon, it's like, holy shit. Again, it turns into real life, right? You're like, yep, this is real, and I had to really take an appreciation for the gals who've been doing it for decades, when I first got on the job. And, I was lucky. I had phenomenal FTOs. I mean, you're talking like really, really good freaking cops and great investigators and guys and, who were detectives, went back to patrol, and had just a wealth of knowledge. One thing one of them was a Marine vet. He wasn't the call for and everything, and he shit on me because I was Army, and I shit on him because he was Marines. Whatever. That love-hate relationship, but it was great. He was very like, you could tell he knew his shit. you know, when we were out there, especially in the inner city in Boston, some of the really bad areas. I mean, you know, I get it. Like, you know, I think my first week on the job, I must have drawn a couple times here. And I'm like, holy shit, this is, you know, I'm actually drawing my weapon, arresting really bad dudes, you know, and it you quickly, I guess, working in a city, you quickly learn the job, right? It doesn't take you that long because just, you know, what you see, and I'm sure you could agree with that one.
Oh yeah, dude. My first night, I had a rape, and then went straight to a shooting. And the dude, basically got executed in this park. Seven
Yeah.
shots. He got shot over a dope deal, and then they stood over top of him, blew his head, into, a pumpkin,
Yeah.
smashed pumpkin looking. So, from a guy, I'd seen a drowning victim when I was younger. That was it, and all of a sudden you get a dead guy. But you're right, you lose it. You gotta either get into it really quick, lose any fear and any hesitation really fast, and you do. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just the way you have to do it. And then you start numbing out too, and that happens pretty quick. Which,
Oh yeah, I mean, you get desensitized so quickly after a while, which that leads into our later discussions about mental health and resilience and all that stuff. I mean, one thing is I'd say lucky / not lucky is like, you know, my time at war was all that adrenaline. You're jumping and you're running, you're doing shit, and so kind of like when I came home and, you know, then became a cop, I all of a sudden felt home again in that chaos, right? To me, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this feeling. I know this feeling. I know this, you know, stuff like that. But I also had to remember that I'm not in a war zone. I'm in the U.S. and I can't throw 400 rounds downrange, you know, going after somebody. You know what I mean? So it kind of like I had to remember and balance all of that really, really quick, you know, to just realize that, yeah, no, like we're accountable for everything and we have to act a certain way and be a certain way and stuff like that. So that helped with an FTO who was a veteran himself, a combat vet himself, and to be able to kind of guide me through those types of situations and scenarios. So how long was your FTO program?
it's 8 weeks.
8 weeks, really?
Yeah, unless you're struggling, then you get an extra 2, and if you can't make it
Okay.
after that point, they start processing you to get fired. Yeah, but
Yeah.
8 weeks. I was all on the overnight shift, man, all in the right in the middle of the thick of it in Kansas City, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Mine was 12 weeks. The way they do it up here is 12 weeks.
Okay.
So 4 weeks with your initial FTO, 4 weeks with another, no, sorry. 3 weeks with your first FTO, 3 weeks with another FTO, then 3 weeks with another FTO. Then shadow phase is with your original FTO. And, you know, if you guys do shadow phase similar up here, he's in plain clothes and he just kind of hangs out and jumps in if he needs to. And that's the way FTO, exactly. So it's like, okay.
I don't think you'd get a whole lot of people being FTOs if that's what I mean. Now, same we're dealing with my FTO though. He was the same way. He was like, "Hey, I'm not here. You're going to act like you're a solo car, because we were always patrolling back in the day was your solo car." So he's like, "Hey, I'm here in case like the shit hits the fan. But if you need something, you need to call and ask for backup, and
Yeah,
and you need to make all the decisions. Don't look to me. I'm not here, so don't look to me to make the decisions or help get you unfucked, if you will."
Yeah. So were you two in separate cars? Because that's the way we were. We were like on our final phase. We were in separate cars, and I'd go to the call, and he'll meet me there. But I don't know. You know, literally, he told me the same thing. I'm not even here. He's like, unless shit really goes down south, you're gonna have to deal with this. I'm like,
yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, we rode in the same car. We
Okay.
had a computer terminals had just come out, but so he turned it towards him, and you never see it. So it was there was no help of the mapping systems, all that. So we memorized our 100 blocks east and west, north and south.
Yeah.
I mean, and he would grill you, man, all night long. If you weren't pumping calls, he was like, "Okay, take me to," and he'd rattle off an address. You had to get there the fastest way possible. You took the long way, you got lost, and you got dinged. So geography was huge. Which
Boston,
Kansas City.
Boston.
Oh, go ahead.
I don't know if it's Kansas City the same way, but Boston is like, yeah, you're gonna get lost because fuck you, we don't care in Boston. Yeah, that's just the way
Nothing makes
Boston is
sense.
because it's not in grids, it's nothing. You're like, it goes all different directions.
Yeah, we're a grid, but we're big. So for 400,000 people, physical size is about the size of New York City. So it's a really spread out, but it's mostly a grid pattern. So it made it pretty easy.
No, Boston, there's no such thing as grid. You just good luck, usually. So that was the same thing. So with my FDO, same thing. I had a terminal. Obviously much updated from when you started. We had the good old GPSs and everything. And man, he turned that computer right around and says, "Figure it out. You're gonna have to get to point A to point B." And he would do the same thing. Like, I'm sure your FDO did it, where he'll tell me to stop. All right, I just got shot. Where are we? And what are you doing? Like, oh fuck. But if you weren't on your A game, yeah, you get dinged. That goes on your on your DOR and.
Yeah, same, identical. And I think every good FTO should probably be doing that. I mean,
Oh yeah.
it makes sense. You never know. Like when I got shot, you need to know the fastest way to get to the hospital. So, we'll talk about that and what that meant for me. Speed is of the essence. But that's huge, because if you're relying on your FTO and then he's also incapacitated, you better know how to get where you're going.
Yeah, exactly. So you did how many years of patrol? After FTO, you did patrol for how long again?
Just short of 6 years.
Just short of 6 years, and then you went on to do.
Undercover
You
work.
became a detective and undercover work. So in terms of undercover work, how did you get selected for that? Because I know, like, different bosses are different, like, in terms of working undercover. And I always try to tell people there's a difference between plain clothes and undercover. Some people don't think that just because you're plain clothes means you work undercover. I said, no, there's two different assignments. Like, undercover is undercover in the mix, and you got to literally create like a personality, and a whole different guy. And my wife hated who I was, just so you know. She absolutely hated him. But I'll tell you a funny story about that in a little bit. But and you went into narcotics and guns, right? That was the unit you went into.
Yeah, it was a selection process. You go do a testing, policies, procedures. You do a whole interview process where you get to answer a bunch of questions from a whole panel of the undercover sergeants, and then you go through do mock buys. And then once you're on the list, you got to wait for somebody to leave and you can take their spot type thing. So I got selected in 2012 and came down. And you're right. I mean, my undercover persona was Ricky.
Mhm.
I may piss off some people by saying this, but the way we looked at it with our squad is you have to earn your beard. Like, everybody want to grow a beard at work.
Yeah.
It wasn't used to be allowed in uniform. Now it is a little bit, but if you aren't out buying dope and buying guns, you're surveillance guys, and that's fine because you have to blend in. And I wouldn't say that because we were pretty much low men on the totem pole, low ladies on the totem pole. But yeah, we were out buying dope, hand to hands, in the crack houses, heroin houses, hanging out all day, every day. We'd come in to a covert office and grab a couple $100 from our draw, and off we went, man. We didn't come back until we were out of money, needed more, or the day finally ended. So yeah, just straight up dope buyers and gun buyers, man. It was always a source of pride too, of like, we're not doing CI buys. So it's how many hand to hands can you get? How many houses can you talk your way into? But even then, like, the days of cold knock on a door was mostly gone, because everybody had the Obama phones. Everybody had.
Yeah.
So there's no reason you go knocking on the door like it's New Jack City days. But man, that was still there. The old ways of some of them bosses were like, hey, we need to go do like 50 cold knocks today. Man, come on.
Yeah, they don't do that.
There ain't a white dude in like 12 blocks of this, so they're gonna look at me dressed like shit with long greasy hair. My clothes are like, I'm gonna break in their house. So you're damn right. Like, the first thing's gonna happen is they're gonna bring a gun out. I mean, like, that's almost a guarantee. Like, I would if I was on my front door. Yeah. I'm coming to the door with a gun.
Wow. Okay. So you did that for how many years doing the UC?
So it ended up being a little over 11 total. I took like a 9-month hiatus to do like an admin job for a little bit. Absolutely hated it. I mean, it's I can't imagine when people do this work, get promoted and have to go back to patrol. I mean, I would have gotten fired for sure. I mean, I just wasn't meant for office work after doing this, and I was craving the adrenaline and everything else.
Yeah.
And so I finally got lucky. We had a joint task force with the ATF and our detectives, and our main focus was go out and buy dope on large scale and buy guns from felons, murder weapons, and that's what I did, man. I go out and buy dope, and we did so well at it. I mean, we caught probably half of all of Kansas City's homicide suspects, our squad.
Wow.
So what we end up doing, since we were so dang good, we end up, if we had a homicide in Kansas City, which we get about 180 a year, within an hour of the homicide guys on scene, our whole squad was on scene. And then we're like, who's the suspect? Who's his associates? Who's her associates? Let's go find them. Can we buy the murder weapon? Can we put dope cases on them and people to help them flip them? and figure out his phone number, do our cell traps, and figure out where they're at. So
Yeah.
that was like our whole goal, man. So it was like 90, 95 hours a week, 6 days a week, man, just running and gunning nonstop.
Wow. So that's, yeah, you guys definitely a busy squad, busier than my unit that we did, because so I went to the DA task force, and it was almost a selection process where the chief sends your name up, to replace the guy who essentially got promoted. He was there for like 10 years, 10 plus years. He got promoted, so they needed someone to replace him, and guys from my PD. And so 3, 4, 5 of us put our names in, and I was already a detective at the time working major crimes. We do like buys here. I was always interested in the drug and gun game, even as a detective doing major crime. So I developed like CIs and stuff like that. Do CI buys, and do your typical 3 or 4 buys, and then hit the house and see what happens. See what comes up on the other end, and just a typical investigation type. Drug investigation. So I had my meeting with the RAC of the office, of the resident agent in charge of the office that I went to. And we had meetings, and I'm all tattooed up, so he liked the tattoos. He's like, oh yeah, you'll definitely fit right in with all those tattoos, whatever. So because I don't have anything law enforcement, I don't those sort of tattoos. A lot of it is military and different random things. So he I got selected and went up, and he had me partner up with a really good friend of mine. He was the primary undercover guy for the unit. Really really good dude, and man, he's a go-getter, as a undercover. So I kind of went under his wing, started to learn how to do what he does, and kind of create my own character, so to speak. And then I got my first case in terms of being the UC to buy, and holy shit, does, like, you want to talk about adrenaline? you know like you know what I mean. It's so different, especially like your first one, and you're like, fuck, you have your fake driver's license, they give you all that shit. You go to the registry. I don't know if it's the same with Kansas City, but like for us, the registry is this dark corner area no one knows about of the registry, and that's where you get your like ghost plates and your ghost ID and all that shit. And it was so funny. So my persona was Adam. That's what everyone, that was Adam. And like I said, my wife absolutely hated that persona, because when I'm on the phone with bad guys, I gotta, yeah, you're talking to Adam now, and I'll be rolling in home making friggin' deals like, hey, for tomorrow or tonight or whatever, and I'm fucking just talking. And I remember one day she looked at me, she just pointed out the door. Because you just hated it. So what I want to talk is like about your first buy, like that your first one where you're like, fuck, this is real.
Yeah, man. So when we break it, because we had to go through a whole FTO process as undercovers. So my FTO, he got me good, just like the Army recruiter. He's like, hey, dude, you're gonna spend your first week just listening on other people's deals, and then eventually you'll call out their deals on our listening advice if we have one of those going. And you're just going to do surveillance and watch, and you'll get a feel for things, and then we'll get you out talking to people. He's like, man, you look like a cop because my hair just hadn't got long yet. My beard was still coming in. He's like, but you walk and act like a cop, and you carry yourself like a cop. So people are going to pick that up more than your appearance. And we always relied on our appearance, though, as you know, like ultimately, but like you could go with a clean cut, high and tight, and go buy dope if you have the right mannerisms and the right speed. So we went to lunch on the very first day, and we get done eating. He says, all right, dude, you ready to go hit the street? I'm like, yeah. We're like, who's doing buys? He's like, well, you're doing buys. Well, you're not doing buys, but we'll get you out on foot. I'm like, wait a minute, what about having this whole week thing? He's like, no, man. So yeah, man, I went to a place, it's like 9th and Bales in Kansas City. It's like right in the straight area of the hood, and there was like always this party going on in the empty lot next to it. So about 30 people always drinking, hanging out. Nobody was ever holding. They'd have to call it up. But he said, go out. He pulled me. He pulled right up in the parking lot. So now you got 2 white dudes, and he's pointing and talking to him. Man, why you got to be pointing? Like, we're in the hood. You don't point at people in the streets. He totally set me up. But I get out, and I go try to talk to these people. And they're all like, oh, yeah, officer. What's up, detective? New guy. I was like, no. And I tried to play it off, and I bungled it to live in shit.
Yeah.
And it was a complete fail. It never happened. They all laughed at me, and even as I was like trying to make up some excuse, like I was trying to, hustle the dude that just dropped me off. And they were like, yeah, no, we got this. So, man, it was like 20 minutes later, though. I was 4 blocks to the north, and that's where a lot of our street walking prostitutes are. And I had our female UC give me a lot of pointers, and she's like, dude, take this cigarette and you go ask for people for light and hand out a couple of cigarettes to people. Ultimate icebreaker. Promise you'll get to talking to people. Just calm down and just go fuck with them and have fun.
Yeah.
So, man, and I was a runner for all my life. I'd never even smoked a cigarette. I didn't know how to hold it. So I walk up and I'm holding it looking like some 1940s actress, all kinds of stupid. And so I'm I'm handing these cigarettes out and everybody's my friend, man. And it was pretty funny. They finally bought into it just off of that, this goofy kid. I went, bought 2 crack rocks and thought it was the biggest and best thing ever. And I came back to the office at the end of the day and I was all excited and trying to tell everybody the story. And they're all looking at me like, dude, you have no idea. This is nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was so amped and excited, man. I came home and I was telling my wife all about it, all just upside down with excitement. And to be fair, 2 crack rocks is really not much. That's not.
When you think about, well, again, though, your first buy, you're like, hell yeah, when it finally works out. I mean, with me, it was, one of the ones I did, I actually had a CI with me to introduce me to his dealer, which we do that a lot. And with the UC, we go to the broke down. It's so funny, so stereotypical. You go to the shitty hotel, to the shitty part of town. Shit is man, the show. Have you ever seen The Wire?
Oh yeah, dude.
Most accurate fucking undercover narcotics show. That's by far as accurate as it gets, right? And so I remember I buy 60 grams of fentanyl, I think it was. So it was good chunk, good softball size, and that was just the intro, just to get me, in the door. And my persona was not so much of a user, but of another dealer, right? Because because I work out like a madman. I was even more shit than I am now. And they're like, dude, you can't pass off as a junkie. I'm like, I ain't no junkie. There's no way. I was like, you can't put me in there, calling me. I'm like, I'm your dealer. I'm the guy that can get kilos, I'm the guy that facilitates,
Yeah, you're walking down the street, people hitting you up because you're the man.
Exactly. Well, that's exactly it. Another funny story is before I get to this one, actually. So I was on the surveillance team at this one, and it was the UC doing a different UC doing the buy, and I was parked, down the street. I was just kind of keeping the eye. Actually, I wasn't the eye. I was just kind of 2 streets over, and this fucking guy comes up to me, knocks on my window, and I don't know who it is. So I got my my undercover gun literally in my hoodie, and I got it pointed right at the door, what the fuck is this? And he's like, hey, are you all set? I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good, man. He calls one of the detectives in the city that we were working in, says, hey, I got a drug dealer. I think I can buy from him. He's talking about me. So that's the persona I had. I'm the drug dealer. If you want something, I'll get it for you. But anyways, so going back to the other story, where after I bought the 60 grams of fentanyl, we have this freaking Mark Cruiser come up behind me. Now, this 60 grams is sitting on the freaking right in the center console in plain view. And I'm like, I hope this fucking cop isn't the one, isn't the proactive type. The last thing I do, we're going to get pulled over. He's going to rip me out of the car. He's going to handcuff me. And then we're going to have to deal with it, down the road. And the whole time, I hear my radio, the chirping of the radio, they're like, ah, shit. Blah, blah, I can hear, in the background, guys are talking. I'm like, God damn it. And then you got my CI who's fucking freaking out. I'm like, dude, you're gonna get us pulled over. So here I am talking like a drug dealer to another guy. Stop fucking acting that way. He's gonna get us. But he turns, goes a different direction. I'm like, God damn, dude. So it's some of these funny stories that we have. Have you ever dealt with other officers that just show up and you're like, fuck, you gotta kind of, no, you haven't. Yeah,
no, totally did.
Man, you totally did. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Well, if you do it long enough, you're going to run across them. You're going to run across the proactive guys.
Yeah.
So, but I was buying some in crappy apartments down in our entertainment district, and these proactive guys were wait for that. You'd know when the dope guy showed up, because all of a sudden people look like me were rushing the building.
Yeah.
And so I would always go buy in that back stairwell because I don't want to go hang out in the apartment. The whole deal was I'm buying 5-6 crack rocks, and if I start lighting one up right now, then everybody's going to come for a free hit. So I'd always try to like buy it and boogie out. And the moment these dudes busted through the door, you know, the management had called like, hey, we have this problem. Can you help us out? So these two officers come bolting through the door. I get snatched up by the dope man, and he like rushes me and like locks me into this apartment. He's like, we got to wait here till the cops leave. So like, where everybody's watching the window, waiting for the cop car to leave. And they're all looking at me like, well, dude, you wanted to get high. You got 6 rocks and you light it up. Come on, man. Like, hurry. And I knew these two dudes. I mean, it'd been a year or two since I'd seen them.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like, fuck, man. And finally I was like, okay. Hey, I think I can make a run for it. Worst case scenario, they chase me and you guys can all get away. And I mean, I did. I took off running. They, got me in a foot chase and come chasing me down. I was like, guys, knock it off. I was like, come on. And good for you, guys. And I hit him up. I'm like, hey, can you tell me when you're going to do these? Like, I'm not going to tell you when I'm buying, but can you tell me when you're going to come rush the building?
Yeah.
Because if I'm in there, I don't want you doing that again, because that's going to put me in a hell of a bind.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, if you do it long enough, you're going to run into those, and I applaud my proactive guys. Like, hey, I got pulled over once by one of the proactive guys, and I was in the middle of going from point A to point B to the buy location, and he pulls me over because, whatever. Granted, I'm driving a typical drug dealer car. Yeah, I'd pull me over. And I told him, I'm like, hey, dude, I'd pull me over. So he comes up to the window and he sees it's me. He's like, fuck. He's like, are you working? I'm like, yep. He's like, I'm like, listen, just take my license, take my registration, make it all look good. Like, we're good. And he did it. And later on, I bust his balls. I'm like, you fucking asshole. Now the buy didn't go through because of you, but I was just fucking with him.
Dude, the same way I got pulled over, the guy come up and he's like, damn it, I knew I had a good one. I was like, well, hold up, don't go back crying yet. Like, let's yell at me for a couple minutes and then walk back.
Exactly. It's funny, you got to coach him like, no, you got to make it look real, got to make it look good. Yeah. Just don't walk away, So
he's like, damn, I knew I had. He's like, goofy looking white dude. I always had a minivan. He's like, goofy looking white dude in a minivan over here. Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, meth head.
Again, sure. I'd pull me over.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's get to the operation, to the op where you took fire and you got shot. All right. And, it's always, I have a couple friends of mine on the job also that have been shot, and it's kind of one of those reality checks of the job, right? We have fun, UC work, all that good stuff, SWAT, whatever we do in our career, but the reality of it is, you're in that much more danger as you see, as being the guy in literally the lion's den, acting the part, playing the part, and then shit just goes south. So can we go into that and talk about that?
Yeah, man. So and I had my fair share of very close calls well before this. We'll talk about the book after a while. A lot of those are in my book, but on this day we were out. I was with the ATF squad, right? We're tracking down this homicide suspect. He basically gone into a chicken and fish restaurant and robbed the place. And as soon as he did, the guy opened the register, said, hey, take care of all the money. But he got nervous and scared, so he tried to run out the back door, and he basically shot him in the back and then stood over top, executed him. We're out looking for this guy pretty hard, knowing that he's a bad dude. And we had been like 5 weeks on without a single day off. And we call them our street narcotics unit, tactical squad. So those are our guys. Like, they're not going to do the surrounding call outs. They're the guys that you got stuff going down. They're going to kick the door in and come and grab you and save you.
Gotcha.
They do like 800, search warrants a year from our.
Jesus.
So they're really hustling.
Yeah.
And so they hadn't had a day off and even longer and get pulled in way more directions than we do. So with that day, we decided, hey, we haven't been able to find this guy for a week. Let's come in on this Sunday, and we're going to at least lay eyes on him. Surveillance only. So let's take a skeleton crew of our TAC guys. So we got 2 TAC guys, and only like 5 of us detectives raised our hand to come in. And man, I thought maybe we'd just sit here for a couple hours and get some overtime pay and, go on home. And he showed up at his girlfriend's house. First time he'd shown up there in well over a week. And we followed him around for a little bit. He was driving real stupid. So we thought, he's checking his tail. So we kind of let loose on him go, and he goes to this hotel. Oh, it's right by Arrowhead Stadium, like right by where the Chiefs play.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, cool. Well, you can't get any eyes on the parking lot, man. There's there's this really big privacy fence, and the parking lot's tiny. I mean, you can put like 5 cars in this parking lot at best. Like if you try to pull in and try to leave, you're gonna do the whole Austin Powers, 17 million point turn.
Yeah.
But we can't get eyes to figure out what room he's in, and we didn't want to rely on, okay, let's just go wait tomorrow morning until he comes out, because if we got him in the room, we'll knock on the door. We know he's in there. We could do surround and call out or all that stuff. But so the goal was to find what room he's in, and that was my job, was to get out on foot. And so I'm dressed down in my best tweaker gear, and I decided, okay, at minimum I'm going to rent a room and I'll hang out here all day and night and watch him.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty easy for what you would call, that wouldn't even really what I would consider undercover work for me. And I walked in the manager's office, and again, it's right in the middle of a pretty bad area. They rent hourly rates, and the office is all surrounded in bulletproof glass. And I walk in, bam, there's our guy. He's like right there next to me, and he wouldn't even move his legs, so I had to step over his legs to come in. And it's 8 foot by 10 foot, tiny little office. And I decided, man, at that moment, I called an audible on the whole thing. I said, hey, this guy is clearly pigeonholed in this little thing. He can't get out. So I snuck out. I tried to put over my listening device, hey, guys, send in the TAC guys, come into the manager's office. Well, my listening device had gone down, and nobody knew it. I didn't know it. So it took about a minute and a half of delay to finally get somebody on the phone and hey, send the guys in. What the hell? By that time, he's been watching me out through the window, got real nervous, and he came out of the office and made it to the back of his car by the time they came screeching in the parking lot. Man, the moment they did, he just kind of looked at him with just a weird look. I mean, he knew the police were looking for him. They put his picture on the billboards up. He had a real distinct star tattoo on his cheek. He just kind of gave him a weird look, and he sat down in his car and slowly shut the door.
Yeah.
I thought, man, this is uncomfortable. Now we got two guys on him. We knew there was another person in the car. That kid gets out and just completely ignores commands and walks sideways real slow. So I thought, okay, first time in all my undercover time, I'm going to be part of a takeoff.
Yeah.
I always ran. I mean, if it was going down and I was there, I'd be running. Yeah. Usually it happened when I was nowhere near it. And I came up behind the driver of our TAC car, and I said, man, I need a gun. You have a gun? He's like, get out of here, Ricky. What the hell are you doing? Man, I'm going to help. And so they're barking commands, felony car check type thing. So I reached down to grab his handcuffs off his back of his pistol belt, and then everything starts exploding. So bad guy jumps out of his car with an AK pistol and just lights us up. So, okay. I was behind Mike. He was my SWAT guy, and he goes down right on his belly, immediately, boom. Yeah. Which I thought he was dead. I'm like, shit, Mike's dead. I don't have a gun. Mike's holding the gun, so I'm gonna reach over there and grab his gun. But I didn't know Mike got shot 4 times, and one of them, took out his leg, and he went down, and he was returning fire underneath his door. Well, his slide hit the underside of the door.
Yeah.
And caused a stovepipe. So Mike's dealing with the stovepipe. I mean, obviously we know this is happening so quick, but in your mind, it's really slow.
Yeah.
So Mike jumps up and then redirects as he's trying to fix his gun, and his partner, they're redirecting to come attacking from another angle. And I tried to run, and I don't have a gun, I don't have a vest. I mean, nothing vest would do anything.
Yeah.
And so when I'm trying to make behind they had a Ford Explorer police cars. So when I make it right to the back end of that, man, I get tripped. Fall to the ground, do a barrel roll, and I get up in this bear crawl position, and I'm watching where he's coming from. Well, he charged us, and he comes running around the back end of the police car, just spraying rounds. Well, I got up, took off running out of the whole parking lot, and got behind that privacy fence. And by the time I did, I was there was bullets skipping all around me, left and right. I could see them, and I was like, okay, holy shit! I just want to feel it hit my head, because if I feel it and I'm still awake, I can still keep fighting.
Yeah.
Just a weirdest thing to think about when you're running as a guy's shooting at you.
Yeah.
But I made it around and I was like, I lift up my shirt. I'm like, okay, chest is good. Check my crotch. I'm like, yep, okay. The 2 big most important things are good. And I took a step, man, and I fell. I completely fell down. My foot was kind of angled the wrong way. I'm like, man, this is really, why the hell is that happening? I mean, I didn't have any pain. I didn't have any burning sensation. No, nothing. Well, what tripped me was actually his round. He hit me directly in the back of my left knee, blew my leg half off. But it tore it up really bad. But still pure adrenaline, just running. And so at I kind of stand up and I'm seeing all the blood. I'm like, okay, I'm starting to comprehend. Okay, this isn't good. Well, the guy that had dropped me off, he swung by to pick me back up. And I was like, hey, dude, I'm shot. I'm shot. He's like, I know, Ricky, get in the car. So I hop over towards his car. I got 2 shots in my right leg. I got 2 directly. One went behind my left knee. The other one hit the front of my left knee.
Yeah.
And I caught one on the wrist, it did one of those weird, running underneath the skin and then blew out my elbow type deals. And then the other one was a ricochet that bounced up and hit my humerus and broke my arm.
Yeah.
So I jump in the car. I'm like, oh, dude, what the hell? I mean, get me back to my van. I'll drive myself to the hospital. He's like, yeah, dude, stop. We're out of it.
Yeah.
And so we start driving to the hospital, and the bad guy had, gotten back in his car and was driving away, but he's going like 30.
Yeah.
He knows he shot one cop. I mean, I don't know what he thought I really was.
Yeah.
But he's driving like 30 miles an hour. I was like, dude, Brian, give me your gun. Give me your gun. I'm gonna just pull up next to him. I'm just gonna execute him right here on the highway. Yeah. And he's like, no, we can't do that.
Yeah.
So they followed him. He ditched his car, ran across the highway, and he holed up in a abandoned house. And some citizen saw him because we lost him completely. The guys that were out on the ground. Well, I mean, eventually, like 300 people came in. Like they started hearing about it, not realizing what was happening, and they got in a hour and a half long shootout with him until he was almost out of ammo. He kicked the back door open. He shot another officer while he was doing that, so 3 of us got shot that day. But he kicked the back door open, came out spraying into the wood line, and they ended it right there.
Yeah.
I was out of it at that point. I mean, Brian had taken the guy that was driving me. I was bleeding really good, so we didn't stop to get his go kit to get the tourniquets out. So I made like homemade tourniquets for myself, driving to the hospital, which is like a weird feeling to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I made it to the hospital, and they're like, "What's happened?" I'm like, laughing, almost laughing because it still wasn't comprehending in my head. I was like, "Dude, some asshole shot me. I'm on undercover."
Yeah.
And they're like, "We see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You look like shit."
Yeah. So, post, the shooting and all that. I mean, so how long was the recovery and mentally, obviously, physically, we know the injuries, but mentally, when did it really hit you?
That night, I was full of a lot of shame and guilt, man. So that mental strike really hit me that night. I mean, luckily, the third guy that got shot, he actually got hit the bullet hit his front sight post on his AR. So God bless him that he was one of those cheaper guys that had the old A2 style front sight instead of the flip up. It ricocheted off that and hit him in his bicep and tore his bicep off. So that thing was coming dead to his center. So lucky to be alive, guy. But man, all I could think about was a shame. It's a weird feeling to say that you got shot because that meant you did something wrong and you messed up. Because that's our goal. Go home safely and go home. I was going home eventually, but it really felt messed up. And then you never want to get somebody else hurt. So then I took blame for everything. If you could have made a blame pie, I was taking every piece of it. I wasn't giving any of the bad guy that shot me.
Yeah.
I wasn't giving anything to anything else. It was all my fault. I called the audible. And for sure, I share the blame for some of the actions that day. So first time ever interjecting myself in a stop. So man, that night, the doctors and nurses, they didn't do surgery till the next day to start repairing my leg. But they would come in like, hey, do you want any pain medicine? I'm like, nope. I deserve this pit of hell and this pain.
Yeah.
So the mental stuff like that, it set in right off the bat. It took me just about a week to be able to go home. They got me, it was the extremities, so they got me wrapped up enough. And they got home, and several surgeries later throughout the year. But man, like right when I got home, I didn't even recognize it home, and it felt weird to be at home. Like I shouldn't be home. I should be dead. I mean, the guy at anywhere from 15 feet to 25 feet, shooting at me with an AK. I'm lucky to be alive, but it didn't really feel lucky,
Yeah.
So I really had a whole pit of dealing with. My wife is distraught. My family is distraught. Everybody's concerned. Like, I'm starting to see all this destruction that I created, and it just really kept bringing me down. And so, man, like, wasn't sleeping. Really, like the nightmares were so real, real. Like I would wake up, I'd be covered in sweat, and I'd hear somebody break into my car. I'd go and I'd track them down and they'd shoot me, and then I'd wake up right as I'm dying. And I'm like, oh, thank God, but I could feel the pain. And like you ever say, like pinch yourself so you know you're dreaming. And I could feel the pain. And I kept having dream inside of a dream inside. I never knew when reality was. So when I woke up for real, I thought it was just a dream. I'm like, well, I'll just do whatever I want. I mean, and that's where I think people get really get that confused. That's where people get really big trouble because you don't know when reality is.
Yeah.
But it took me a year and a half, and I actually came back to work. I had a pretty good limp. And I said to my wife, like, babe, I'm not gonna buy dope anymore. I won't buy guns anymore, but I want to go back to my same unit. I'll just be one of the surveillance guys. She's like, you got to be crazy. What the hell? But I was so addicted to the adrenaline, dude.
Yeah.
Like that was it, man. I was like, I feel like I just had my adrenaline taken away. Like when I went to the admin squad, which is why I was driving myself crazy. I didn't have my dope anymore, if you will. So, man, I went back, but I went through like the whole riots of 2020, and we had our fair share. But I mean, they even put me in uniform. Hey, they're tearing the hell out of our downtown entertainment district. Like 5,000 people. Let's go put you in riot gear. And everybody else had like these cool new ballistic, the military style Kevlar ballistic helmets. Our old riot gear was old motorcycle helmets.
Oh, Jesus.
So that's like, well, you were off duty, because one of the things they did was people in my unit, we got full auto ARs and, and we got ballistic helmets for riot gear just in case these same things happened again. Well, I was gone, so I didn't get the helmet. Yeah. So now here I am wearing this stupid white helmet with the big black front. And of course, everybody's like teeing off like, hey, this guy's got to be in charge. So everybody's like, the crowds that are all mad during the riots that are all looking, that's the guy in charge. Throw shit at him. His helmet's different. He's got to be in charge.
Yeah, he's the general.
Yeah. The Mexican war general out here.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
man, I mean, so it's that's the thing, like recovering from something like that. I don't think I asked you, what year was that whole shooting?
July 2018.
2018. Okay, so July 15, 2018, and you didn't. So a year and a half off, and you get thrown literally right into a riot. Right back into it. I mean, how did your wife feel about that? I mean, you going back out there like that?
I think if she were to tell you honestly, she was nervous as can be. She's a strong woman though, and she really did not hammer me. She asked me a couple times, like, "Hey, is what you're doing safe?" And I said, "Yeah, of course, babe. Like, I'm not buying dope, so I'm safe." I mean, that's what it seemed like to me. Is like I'm surveillance only. I wasn't even like initially. I wasn't even doing jump outs because I limping really hard and like, what the hell am I gonna do? But then that changed, man. We would take off, still in the same goal of going after homicide suspects. Yeah, they're jumping out, chucking flashbangs, and everybody in my squad's getting out but me. I'm like, well, I don't want to feel like the slug. Yeah. So I started doing jump outs too, man, which is when I started realizing I have a problem.
Yeah.
I had a really bad incident that we were taking off an armed robbery crew, and they backed into a parking spot, as our bad guys usually do. So our TAC guys pinned them in head on. And when I blocked the parking lot with my minivan, and I'm like 40 yards away. But I'm seeing it play out, left to right in front of me. And the bad guy jumps out, gets his pistol out. I mean, he knows it's the cops, and he's got his gun out trying to get a shot on him, which at that point, it's a little far shot for me, but I should have pulled my AR or had my pistol and shot. And the guy's trying to shoot my partners. Yeah. And I couldn't hold my gun straight enough to do it. I mean, my adrenaline and my anxiety was just through the roof.
Yeah.
So it was a hard thing to do. I finally came and I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm a danger to myself. I'm a danger to people. I was just going to quit.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's got to be tough because, when you're in tight with a team, like that, and, whether it's SWAT, narcotics, whatever, I mean, you rely on them as much as they rely on you to do your job, right? To protect them, and they protect you. And yeah, I can only imagine the struggle of trying to get a shot up, but you couldn't, and the anxiety, everything hitting you like a huge wave, and to me, I think there was a lot more strength in you when you finally admitted and said, you know what, I can't do this. To me, that's a sign of more, kind of, I guess, maturity, strength, right? Right from there. I mean, I always tell the young officers, because I'm a sergeant at my work, and I always tell them, like, listen, real strength comes from saying, you know what, I need help, or I need something. I'm like, never bottle shit up. Like, yeah, we're the tough guys. We do this, we do that. But at some point, man, you gotta check yourself, and you gotta be like, you know what, I need to take a break, and that's okay. That's what this is about. And to me, it's like you did the right thing, right? You pulled yourself out of there to do it.
For sure. And I look back at even all my police time and leading up to when I got shot, and even just after, I hadn't cried and ever, like, on anything. I mean, we had some, family issues where, deaths in the family that should have brought some tears, and they just didn't. I was so numb to a lot of that stuff, man. But that day that I hit the button and said, I need help, I cried. I mean, before I actually hit the button and said, man, help me,
Yeah.
I sat there crying. I think I knew my time was over, and there was a lot of shame around it too, because there's a lot of shame. People, and I'm hoping that's what, when I travel around and speak to conferences and agencies, there shouldn't be shame in this. Needing help or asking for help. Everybody needs it. Even if you are 100% good, you do it to maintain being that way. Yeah. And so when the stigma of is, or you're not tough or you're weak, it needs to go. There's too many people that are complete legit, badasses that are saying, hey, like Tom Satterley, the guy hunted down Saddam Hussein 25 years as a freaking special forces guy. The guy's saying people need help and you should go to therapy. Don't wait till you're broken to try to fix you. Stay well so you don't get broken in this way. So that's what I'm really hoping to change with a lot of this, man. I'm glad you preach it to your folks, because it's catching on more, but it hasn't always been that way.
Well, I always say in the world of first responders, law enforcement, I mean, firefighters do a better job than we will ever do, is to really hit the mental health aspect of the job. I mean, I always say the military has come a long way since GWAT in terms of taking care of the soldiers and stuff like that. But in terms of law enforcement, we are still so far behind because of that stigma of, suck it up, drive on, whatever. I mean, there are times, I was just talking to guys, dealing with, it was a pretty significant call where, this whole woman miscarried a 5-month-old, and it was pretty bad. And you had, really young officers with me there, and I had them do the peer support thing at the end of shift and all that. And, I could tell that they were nervous to go, and I'm like, hey, guys, I'm going to go. I kind of took it upon myself to be that leader or that guy, to be like, oh, if he's going, then maybe I should go. And, we all went, and it was fine, and I always tell them, I'm like, yeah, just because you may not feel anything now, but 6 months down the road, it might hit you, and if you're unable, or you don't just let out whatever your thoughts are, whatever, it's going to hit you a lot worse, later on down the road. And that's something I learned, from my time, military war, coming home and being a cop and seeing all that we see, lately for the past several years. I've just been like, you know what, if I don't feel it, like, I'll go seek the help or do something to alleviate that. And kind of catching up now to what you do. I know you said you travel around talking to agencies and departments and officers. I mean, one thing I do like to see is, you're a program advisor for Runestone Ranch out in California. Can you talk a little about the ranch and what you do there?
Yeah, man, it was born of people just like me who experienced trauma. I mean, and I get my case was extreme, right? To be shot.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be shot to be broken and need help. I mean, that's one thing that I think a lot of people are like, well, I understand why Brent's having problems. Brent was having problems well before getting shot. And had I been addressing them, maybe I wouldn't have run up to that car and called out and sought the risks taking and the things I was doing. That was born of two guys that were working out in California who experienced trauma and had to hang it up. And so now their whole goal, and I think California, a lot of places out in California have a lot of these things. So I think they're a little ahead of everybody for this treatment. It's a place to come, hang out. You can do a week-long retreat and, really get together. People like you struggle where it's a safe place and it's okay. And people understand, like, hey, man, we're all here and struggling. Let's do it together and realize you're not alone. And so that's really kind of how it was born. So they're still in the phases of building all this stuff out. They've got a lot of cool partners and a lot of sponsors that are helping, build this whole thing out. They have big dreams of doing all kinds of things and different trainings to get people the help that they need if they're already broken, but to also get people to maintain the proper mindset and the focus early, so that you know how to deal with this when it starts coming up, versus just keep shuttering it. finding shame and guilt with it and, shut it down. So yeah, man, I've loved being a part of them. And I've already found they start passing people off to me because it's kind of funny. Like when I talk to Anthony, he's the vice president there, the co-founder. He's telling me, hey man, people are calling me, this person got shot and they really don't know how to feel. They don't feel like everybody can understand the shoes that they're in. I felt the same way, man. When I first started therapy, I was like one other cop and I was the only one that got shot. I'm like, you guys will never understand.
Yeah.
Turns out though, it's all the same.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff you're actually dealing with the stuff that happened before you got shot. So, but to say, hey man, I'm a survivor of getting shot on duty, and I don't mind talking with you and helping you through yours if that makes you a little more comfortable. So that's really kind of how that part was born. And then talking with the different agencies. I have a cool presentation that I do, and I really do it so people can see what can really happen throughout the years and the stages. So I tell all my stories, and you can see, okay, here's baby cop Brent, which is a picture I sent you. And here is how the development and where I get lost along the way. And you can really see it. Now, I'm a loud example of it. But when you see it, I get a lot of people coming up to me and they're like, man, I didn't realize I had a problem until I can see myself in your shoes. Or I know my coworker, you're exactly my coworker. He to a T. Yeah. Well, if you don't see it, you don't see that you're struggling or having problems, you're not going to fix it. Yeah. I mean, same as me when I was really struggling, and my bosses probably should have come in and tapped me out and said, hey, dude, why don't we go sit down for a little and take a week off or, something. Yeah. If you'd have done that, I'd have told you you're crazy and leave me alone. Let me go do my fucking job. Yeah. Because I was addicted to the work. Yeah. But I think if I could have seen myself in somebody else who says, okay, here's how I'm broken. And here's the science behind it. So I work with a really badass doctor. Her name's Dr. Prohaska. She has a really cool company called Tactical Longevity. She'll bring the science to it a lot of times when we present together. And she's like, okay, you see how Brent's doing this? This is exactly why. And so we're fact finders by nature, man. We want to know why. Why the fuck is this happening to me? And she'll bring the science to it. And it's really helped a lot of people. I mean, I get to me all the time, like, man, I'm so glad I went through this. Yeah. And that's where the book was born, because I can't talk to everybody as much as I'd love to. Yeah. So I really kind of laid it out. The book's not a war story book. There's a lot of crazy incidents in there because, doing undercover work, we all have really funny and really crazy stories. It's the greatest show on earth.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's get into the book. I mean, you called it Undercover Junkie, and it's a great, and, when you first told me the title and then you told me why, I'm like, oh, you know what? That's true. Like Undercover Junkie. Yeah, it's a different kind of high, it's a different type of adrenaline rush. It's a different type of feeling, right? And it's a feeling you chase after you get a taste of it. And it's so true.
It changes you. It's just like a chemical makeup. Dopamine will change your brain. And if you read my book, which I hope you guys do, you'll see exactly how, I get into some situations that are like, I'm in the middle of a knife and a gunfight and I come out of the house laughing. And it, at least two people should have died, and maybe myself on that scene. And the problem is I was judging it as like a 3 or a 4 because I just wasn't, proper self-awareness to realize like, holy crap, this was a bad situation. Every situation seemed reasonable to me. We had the same problem with the people in our urban areas that are used to violence. Yeah. It's normal to them. So like killing somebody is like, they're like, well, what's the big deal? Like, this is what we're used to. Yeah. So people can see that progression and see it in the, if you don't get to hear me talk, you can read it in the book. And it's so far, it's gotten a lot of awesome reviews. I've got a lot of cool people, tacking on with it. So I'm super excited for it to get out there and hopefully help some people. Because the goal is if you can't see me or you can't realize it, your spouses can understand what's going on with you. I mean, the things that, I quit talking to my wife and she had no clue what the hell I was doing. So people can understand, like, okay, this makes sense of why he's doing this. Yeah. Or she.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it is just like, when I write on Havoc Journal, even in my book, Resolute Path, a lot of the things I talk about is not really war stories, but kind of like the aftermath, right? Is like, hey, yeah, I did this, but here's the aftermath. Here's the reality of it. Here's, this is the, again, like the why, and that's, like you said, we're fact finders. And that's part of the training I do is like with stress response and stuff like that is like, all right, why did this excessive force happen? Like, what was going on in the cop's head? What was the excuse me, the physiological effects that was going on when he was under stress? He or she were under stress. Why did they react a certain way? And it makes more sense to people, when they're like, oh yeah, that's true. And again, that's the human side. That's what I always try to introduce is the human side of this job. Is no matter what, we're human. We have human emotions. That's just the way it is. And when you bottle up those emotions long enough, they're going to come out in one ugly way, and that happens to all of us, right? Eventually, especially guys and gals who are proactive, getting at it. Those are the ones I really worry about, is because we were all that, right? We were all those proactive, good to go, do this, do that, do this, do that, go call, no matter what, and eventually it catches up. And I really think people will relate to your book for Junkie, and it looks like it's coming out next month, February 2025, right? That's when it hits the bookshelf, so to speak. Now, is it going to be available on Amazon? Is it going to be available Kindle? Like, is it available all over?
Yeah. So easiest way is on Amazon. I mean, you can go to my website, which is undercovered.net, and you can click and find it across there. But it's on Amazon. It's got paperback, hardback, the Kindle version. Audiobook version won't come out until probably this summer. So, and then, yeah, I think there's already works of, we got to talking I've been getting a lot of great feedback on it. So there's already works that I'll, write a second part to it all. Because you'll see when you read it, we end kind of abruptly, and there's a missing need for the second half. So
okay, awesome. Yeah,
but sure, it's on pre-sale right now. It's doing awesome, and it was a #1 new release on Amazon for the first 2 weeks it was out, which is
nice.
Their algorithm is all kind of skewy and stuff, but when I'm looking at my book was ahead of Bill O'Reilly and Dan Bongino's books, I'm like, hey, dude, I'm somebody. I'm not. I mean, I'm just a guy trying to help people. So want to tell my story, and it's not war stories like we all have these war stories. We can tell these till the cows come home. Nobody wants to read a book about somebody's war stories, but there's a purpose behind it in the messaging, and it's super.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think the message is very important for more people to read and see, even civilians and other law enforcement officers and anybody actually, to see the human side of the job and the toll it takes of doing undercover work and having a different persona where I think you described, when we were talking earlier, like, the lines really do get blurred, after a while. Almost lose yourself to a persona for the longest time until, reality, whether it's like someone like my wife, is just like, hey, get the fuck out of here. Like, don't talk like that. You're like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm not Adam. I'm Iman, right? Like I can't bring Adam home, so to speak. But it's really it really hits you hard, especially when you leave it. Like I got promoted, so then I had to leave, and now doing patrol work. But it's like it's a high that can't really replicate. It's just different, and I really look forward to actually reading your book and also posting it on all my social media, and same with, I'll put it in the show notes for people to get, how to get a hold of you and all that good stuff. That way, should they have questions or anything like that, I'll reach out to you.
Yeah, if they go to my website and see it, you'll see a picture of my challenge coin. I'm going to make that offer to your listeners, man. I'll show it to the camera here if anybody's watching. But there's my challenge coin for my UC days. Awesome. So I think it's pretty cool. Yeah. It actually got outlawed by our department, so I'm not a department member anymore. So whatever, they're not going to hurt me anymore. But if you go do the pre-sale and buy it, send me a message, an email real quick saying, hey, here's my receipt number or whatever. I'll mail you the challenge coin for free. So
that's awesome. But Brent, thank you. Time's getting a little short.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you one question to give our listeners, law enforcement, military, even civilians, if there's one thing you've learned in your experience, if there's one thing you want to give to other cops or other undercovers, detectives, civilians, military alike, if you want to give them a tidbit of advice, what would that be?
Man, our environment changes us, and it goes beyond just military first responders that, I mean, think about a defense attorney or corporate guy. We all know somebody that gets promoted and they got on company, they changed. Our environment changes us. It changes you more than you really ever realize. And that's what's happened to me as an undercover, or just even a cop as general. The moment I was a patrol officer for more than 6 months, I was automatically changed to a whole new person. And it's really tough when it goes against your morals and values, like undercover work or a defense attorney. I mean, you think that they're defending these people. So that's my biggest piece of advice to tell. Like, your environment changes you, whether you know it or not, which is why it's super important to stay on top and reach out to people the moment you're feeling a little odd. I think people should be seeing a therapist just for maintenance. Our therapists do. So why wouldn't we? And to stay grounded and stay true to ourselves. We want to make it to the end of the career and do stuff afterwards. We don't want to make it until we just make it and then be gone a year after we leave.
Yeah.
You have to leave the career at some point. So, man, just remember our environment changes us, brother.
Yeah, no, that's great advice, man. It's so true, and it is so true. Like joking about baby Brent and Brent now, like it's like it truly does, and it takes a toll, and yeah, I mean, I feel it should be mandatory for every first responder to have like a therapist. It should be a mandatory thing. Do a maintenance checkup. You don't have to do it every day or every week, but quarterly. Every 6 months, have that maintenance check just to make sure everything's working up, especially up here, in your head.
Yeah, dude, we train every other way. Why wouldn't we train on this? The science shows that this is more detrimental than being lackadaisical on even like firearms training. I mean,
100%, man.
Yeah, but 100%. I'm with you, man. I think you're right. That's great advice.
All right, my man. Well, hey, I really appreciate you coming on, brother, and we'll definitely chat some more. If you want to hang out just for 1 second, let me do a quick outro, and we'll talk offline. All right, brother?
All right, buddy. Thank you so much for having me, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, folks. There's Brent Cartwright. Get his book. It'll be on the show notes. I think there's a lot of wisdom in his words and a lot of truth to his words. For a guy who's literally been there, done that, got the T-shirt. All right, and it's got the scars to show for it, and also the resilience to show for it. So again, thank you, everybody. Thank you to our sponsors and our supporters. Don't forget, head over to AAA Police Supply. Get whatever you need law enforcement-wise for equipment. Use Sapient 2025 for a discount code on anything that you order. And also Havoc Journal. Head over there and get caught up on military, law enforcement, politics, whatever your heart is set to, they have it. And everybody, stay safe, stay sapient.